Hello, welcome back to another video. In today's one I'm going to be showing you some quick and super easy evening meal ideas. I did a meal prep video last week and you guys really liked it, so I thought I would do like an evening dinner edition kind of thing. Really easy to make and just like some of my go-tos. So I'll get straight into it. I'd really appreciate it if you could give this video a like, as it really helps my channel and everything, and let's go. So the first meal is going to be a chili con carne, and you are going to need some meal prep containers or jars, tins, whatever you prefer. Some rice of preference. I'm using whole grain brown rice. I'll make sure I put the prices and everything on the screen. Then some red kidney beans. Obviously you could use black beans. These are just of my choice. And some chopped tomatoes. These are all really cheap as well, and majority from Lidl or Aldi. Then some garlic. These last quite a while as well as a lot of cloves, an onion, and we've got some peppers as well. I love these because you can just add them to every meal basically. Then for my seasoning I'm using an all-purpose one and paprika. I do think paprika is a must, but obviously just use what you've got in. And then I'm using a large container of lean beef mince in the 5%. So the chopping board is out in full force. You're going to need one of those, and you're also going to need quite a large pan. Don't try and cook this with like a smaller one because there's a lot of mixture, so it's just going to all overflow. Been there, done that, and it's just a nightmare. So next I am chopping up a red and a green pepper. I always start with my peppers first just because they can take a little bit longer to soften and everything. And yeah, I'm just chopping them into fine little bits, but I know everyone's got their different chopping techniques. Then I'm using 3 grams of extra virgin coconut oil. You can buy this from Tesco or any like major supermarkets. And then I'm just weighing out 235 grams of pepper and just throwing that into the pan first. And then just chopping an onion up. My eyes were streaming so much when I was filming this part. It worked out about 112 grams of onion that I was popping in, and then just mixing the peppers and onions around. I always start this way as I just think the veg always just tastes a bit nicer. And then I'm just chopping up some garlic. Obviously you could use garlic granules as well, or like I know you do little jars of chopped granule if you're on like a tight schedule, whatever. But yeah, I just like to crush garlic this way, and then just pop that into the pan. It was about 9 grams of garlic that I used. Then I'm using quite a large portion of lean beef steak mince. Obviously if you're vegetarian you could use an alternative, or if you have like smaller portion sizes or want it for less days you could use a smaller size. This is just what I personally use and what works for me and everything like that. And yeah, just popping that in the pan. This is what I meant about you definitely needing a super large pan, and taking that weird tissue thing off the top bit and just breaking it up. I have it on quite a hot heat to do this part just to get it all cooking nicely. So just make sure you're breaking your mince into small chunks so that it can cook properly and like absorb the juices of all the veg and everything. God, I sound like a chef when I say that. So the next thing I'm doing is popping my seasoning on. I'm using some paprika first and then going in with an all-purpose one. I like to do this quite early on as I just think it adds to the taste. It's just like chicken, you know, when you do it early. Then next I'm just measuring out my rice whilst the mince is cooking. I'm using 590 grams of uncooked rice. This creates such a large portion, like you've got enough for like obviously the mincemeat and then another chicken dish. And I use a ratio of 1.5 cups of water to like 1 cup of uncooked rice. So whilst my chili is just cooking, I'm going to make some rice. I've got one of these rice cookers. I got it off Amazon a few months ago and it's actually changed the game. Like, I don't know what it was, but me and cooking rice in a pan just doesn't seem to ever pan out. Oh my god, Jesus. So yeah, this is just super easy. It cooks in like 15-20 minutes. I'm using the rice that I've just shown you. Then once your mincemeat is all brown and cooked, I'm pouring the drained red kidney beans onto this and then just giving it a little stir around. And then next I'm just using the tinned tomatoes and just pouring that on to the chili. Then I'm just leaving the chili to simmer on a really low heat for about 30 to 40 minutes. You can transfer this into like a smaller pan if you're using the actual frying pan and just pop a lid on it. So after the chili has simmered and is ready to go into the containers, I am putting in 245 grams of the mincemeat. This is just my personal portion size, that obviously it'll be different for everyone. And then you've got quite a bit in the pan, like if you've got someone else, if you're living with someone else or whatever, or you could freeze the leftovers or whatever, or just use like less mincemeat. So the rice is fully cooked and I'm just portioning that out. So I'm using, like, I'm measuring on the scale 100 grams of rice, but that is not actually 100 grams of rice because obviously the water is absorbed by it. So it works out at like 50 grams of actual rice. That's how I like to measure it. So whilst the chili is just simmering, I'm going to start on the next meal, which is like a chickpea kind of curry style, like a cleaner version, for like 30-40 minutes, but it's not absolutely necessary. I just think it adds a bit more flavour to it. So yeah, we'll get into the next one. Also, the rice is still just bobbling along. So this dish is just chicken breast mini fillets. I got these from Lidl. Some chickpeas in water. You could use like any beans or anything that you prefer. Some chopped tomatoes with basil. You can use garlic granules or obviously chopped garlic, whichever you prefer. And then for this, I'm going to use this medium tikka curry powder and an onion. Then I'm just measuring out 3 grams of coconut oil, again just the same as the chili, and I'm just chopping my onion up into small little chunks to throw in the pan to start with. And I'm using 60 grams of onion. I'm just weighed that out and throwing that all in the pan to start with on like a medium heat. Then I'm using the chicken breast fillets and popping them in the pan. Then I'm just using some garlic granules. Obviously you could use chopped garlic if you prefer, and also some curry powder on top. I like to season my meat at this stage usually and then mixing that around. And to keep the chicken moist and tender, I like to put a pan on top too. Then once the chicken is all cooked through, I'm pouring the drained chickpeas in. I'm using 240 grams. So next I'm pouring in 400 grams of the chopped tomatoes into the pan and just stirring that round. And I always like to finish with putting the lid on top and just leaving it on a really low heat, similar to the chili. Then I'm just grabbing my containers for the chicken and I'm about to start portioning these out. I'm making 4 portions of 220 grams of chicken into each one, and I'll make sure I'll pop the macros and everything onto the screen. And left over from that is like probably 1 portion size, and yeah, that's all 4. So obviously you could have like another meal out of that for sure. And then 100 grams of rice, just the same as the chili as well. I think it's really handy making sure you're measuring everything just so you know exactly like what's in each portion, because it can be so easy to go like over in others and then you've just got like a mixture of portion sizes. So yeah, I think scale is super handy when you're meal prepping. On to the last meal, which is a super simple pasta. I'm using this whole wheat fusilli, some sweet corn and 2 tins of tuna chunks, as well as the lighter than light mayo and some pepper. I love this because it is just super quick and easy and so satisfying, and I really like it hot and cold. So I'm weighing out 350 grams of the pasta, pouring in some boiling hot water and just putting that on to cook for about 7 or 8 minutes. Then I'm using 2 tins of the John West tuna in spring water. I always prefer this one as it's less fat than the ones in oil. And then just draining it in the sink. And then it works out 204 grams of tuna altogether, so I'm just pouring that into one big mixing bowl, and then using 170 grams of sweet corn. This is my absolute fave. I absolutely love this meal, honestly, and using loads of this lighter than light mayo. This mayo is so much lesser in calories than other ones, and I'm using 65 grams, which is like a really good generous amount, and then just using a sprinkling of pepper. This makes all the difference in tuna pasta. So yeah, this is the last meal, the tuna pasta, but it's super high protein and the quickest and easiest probably out of them all. Also a nice little lunch option, and it's quite nice hot or cold. So that is the pasta finished. It's such a quick meal to just whip up, especially like if you're meal prepping. There's just no excuses with this one because it takes like less than 10 minutes to make the whole thing, and it's really filling and satisfying. Then I'm using 150 grams of pasta into each container. The whole grain pasta is always like a better choice, I think, because it is lower in calories and carbs, but it's higher in fibre and nutrients, and like just be careful with your toppings and stuff, because anything like cream based sauces and cheeses, that's where you can really rack your calories up. And I know there's a huge stigma around pasta, and you can't like lose weight eating pasta and that kind of thing, which is the biggest myth ever. It is just generally down to like the toppings that you put on it and bump the calories up with. And then I'm putting 100 grams of tuna sweet corn onto each portion, and I've got 4 portion sizes. And then of course with this as well, you can pop it in the freezer and like defrost it, put it in the fridge, or have it hot or cold. So yeah, really good meal. And you can spice things up as well with like different like peppers or any like seasonings on top. Oh my goodness, so there we have it. 3 really good, yummy and high protein, very filling meal ideas. I've tried a bit of the chili and it's absolutely so good. But yeah, super quick and easy, and yeah, you can obviously adjust the portion sizes like to suit you and your macros, and I'll make sure everything's on the screen. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit it with a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if there's any other meal prep videos you'd like to see. I was thinking of doing like a breakfast edition next. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.